So hello, everyone. Welcome to the Homerun Presales Webinar Series. My name is Brian Lewis. I'm co-founder and CRO of Homerun Presales. If you're not already a customer of ours or not familiar with Homerun, we are the presales workspace that gets high-performing teams through their day with one place to track, manage, organize, and inform all of your presales efforts. So if you're a presales manager or presales leader struggling to get the visibility and metrics you need to manage your team, report up to your leadership, or get that seat at the table. Or if you're an SE, SC, or SA, juggling multiple deals, using multiple tools, dealing with the daily chaos that is being in pre-sales, we should talk. My contact information will be at the end of the webinar. You also can request a demo on the Homerun website at www.homerunpresales.com. And with that out of the way, this is our first Homerun hosted webinar, if you can believe it. And so for our first one, I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Paul H. Pearce, president of Great Demo. And Paul's here to talk to us about mastering the art of attention and retention in our demos. I know I'm certainly going to learn a lot today. I'm really excited for this. A little bit about Paul. So Paul brings 25 years of technical sales leadership and experience in his role as president of Great Demo. He has mastered the Great Demo methodology and contributed to its ongoing success and growth. Paul has rolled out the Great Demo methodology to numerous global companies, driving significant software growth with his clients. His executive roles have included leading North American sales for a large human capital technology services firm, as well as serving as VP of technical sales, field enablement, alliances, business development at various global software companies. Not only that, Paul is an author, an industry thought leader, and regular content contributor at greatdemo.com. He resides in Deadwood, South Dakota, enjoys spending time outdoors with his family in the beautiful Black Hills National Forest. So Paul, welcome. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Brian. I appreciate that kind introduction. You know what I really enjoy doing as well is spending time on webinars and sharing really cool stuff with my friends. And I'm looking at the participant list. This is fantastic. I see a lot of my friends out here today. I won't call you all out and embarrass you, but I just want to say, hey, thank you for investing some time with us and just contributing to the conversation today. I'll have you active in your chat dialog box. As a matter of fact, I want you to grab a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. I'm going to ask you a few questions in just a moment. So make sure you have that ready. And then let me know you're there real quick in your chat dialog box. I want to know who's here. First of all, if you would, throw in there what your location is. Where are you sitting at today? Maybe I should say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We're going to have a great conversation today. So let me see real quick in your chat dialog box, hit your location. Where are you located today? All right, Chris, you're in Denver. Fantastic. In my time zone as well. Vegas, Pennsylvania. Hey, good old Illinois. Dublin. Oh, look at this. We got a great distribution of folks from all over the place. Good. Hey, thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. Just wanted to get to know you a little bit. But I tell you what, why don't we get started? Let's talk about how to master the art of attention and retention in your demos. And my buddy Art Fromm's on. And Art, just so you know, it wasn't a play on words for your particular name. Art's one of my partners at a Great Demo. All right, let's get moving. Here we go. I have a quick experiment for you. And I want you, if you will, for just a moment, to listen to these words, if you will. Result, data, test, study, format, answer, sample, number, quantify, focus. Write down the words you just heard me say. I'm going to give you just a moment to do that. Now, don't type them in your chat dialog box. When you're done, just type done in your chat dialog box. So if you got the words and you've written down the ones you remember, go ahead and just tell me that you're done. And then I'm going to move on. Thanks, Chris. All right. Looks like people are getting close. They've written down a few words. Perfect. I love it. Well, then let's do this. Are you ready? Go to Menti, if you will. Use this code. As a matter of fact, right here in your chat dialog box, I'm going to try. Nope. Let me, I will throw in a URL for everyone as well. If you want to go to Menti, what I want you to do on Menti is actually select the words that you wrote down. Now, only the words that you wrote down. This is not an intelligence test. This is going to help me prove something to you. So I'd love to have you, if you will, go to Menti, use code 7286-4227, and fill out the words that you saw me write down, or pardon me, that you wrote down after I read you that list of words. I'm curious to see which ones you remember. All right, we got our first results in. Okay, we're starting to see some interesting patterns here. Give you a few moments here. Hey, Mark Williams, you're not supposed to put the answers in chat, just so you know. You're skewing the results, but that's fine. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Oh, you did it to hosts and panelists. Perfect. You got it. You got it. You guys are good. Interesting. Look at these results. I want to give you about 15 seconds here. Looks like the numbers are starting to slow. All right, we got 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, we can capture this. Hey, I want to share this screen with you. Looking at this screen, I'm curious. There's kind of a pattern here that we're recognizing, and the words that were most readily remembered. So you're seeing the numbers live. Let me ask you, in your chat dialog box, if you would, what pattern are you seeing? When do people remember things the most? Let's see what the answers are. There you go. Jennifer said at the end. Michael, great to see you. First and last thing, beginning and the end. Huh. What an interesting concept. Let me go ahead and I'll remove this from the screen that I'm sharing with you. And you guys got it. You nailed it. You're saying it in your chat dialog box. Attention and retention. It's easier to remember information at the beginning and the end. You just proved it to yourselves, and that it's easy to forget. So it's interesting. We've done a lot of research on this topic. Way back in the day, Michael Blanchett actually came up with kind of this design and this 10 matrix box of memory and retention. A great demo, we have recorded the results for years. And typically what we see when we give this poll or this exercise is things right here. And you nailed it. Things are most easily remembered at both the beginning and the end of a segment or set or presentation. Kind of an interesting thought when you think about that. And so obviously it's easy to remember when you say something at the beginning and at the end. But it's very interesting as well. So as a matter of, hey, actually, Dave, I liked your comment. You said you think John Kerr calls it the trough and the despair, which is the dip in the middle of the demo. I love that. I love John Kerr too. John's an industry expert for those that don't know. If you don't follow him, please do. I've also heard it called something like this, Dave, if you will, the hammock. Pardon me, that's not what I wanted to draw. I wanted to draw like this. This is the hammock, because when does everyone fall asleep? Right in the middle. So it's the hammock effect, if you will. But it's interesting, in just a matter of seconds, if we look at the retention of information that I gave you, didn't last very long. And another concept to consider here is this. It's the forgetting curve. So think about these numbers, 50, 70, and 20. So in your chat dialog box, if you would, what do you think 50% means when it comes to the forgetting curve? Or 70 or 20? I'll tell you what, I'll help you out with that. It's this. First of all, when we look at the forgetting curve and how it was designed years and years ago, here's one thing that's really relevant when it comes to demonstrations. And Jared, I appreciate your comment. You remember 20% of your first run through. That's close. Check this out. This, I think, is going to blow your mind. 50% of the information that you present to your customers in a demo, a solution presentation, is forgotten within the first hour. 50%. If you think that's horrendous, 70% of what you said is forgotten within a day. And after a week or two, they actually remember between 10 and 20% of what you said. The reality isn't good, but here's something that's very important to consider. When you think about this right here, understanding the forgetting curve highlights the importance of engagement and the long-term retention of new information. I actually think when we look at this and you look at the real statistics here of when Ebbinghaus created the forgetting curve years ago, real thought is, what are they going to remember? When are they going to remember? And what do you want them to remember? If they're only going to remember 10 to 20% of what you said in your demo or your solution presentation, or even your corporate overview, what do you want them to remember? Here's a question in your chat dialog box. Answer this for me. What are we really selling? And I'm going to give you a suggestion. It's not features. Solutions. There you go, Jared. Thank you. Solutions. I love that. Dee and Chris. We're selling us. I love that, Chris. But value. Hey, here's another thing that John Kerr told me one time. Actually, I think he put it in an article. I love to reference this. Actually, John had wrote this article one time, and he said, hey, if you're in pre-sales, how do you ensure that you're relevant in the year 2025? With the onset of recorded demos, artificial intelligence, how is it that you remain relevant in your job? Why would you not be replaced by AI and recorded demos? And what I thought John said was actually brilliant. So I want to give him credit. And this is basically the summary of that article and what John said. It's value. Your ability to uniquely understand a customer's situation, their pain points, their critical business issue, and articulate value. So the idea is, if you're not articulating value, are you really doing your job to the extent that you need? Are you selling yourself as a trusted advisor, let's say? So an interesting thing, I appreciate the feedback. Dorian, you're right. Art, you're right. You're selling customer success, client success. You're selling ourselves. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. But I also wanted to share with you the thought. And maybe it's a little bit alarming. But let me highlight this for you real quick here. Guess what? Very little about what you do in your demo is going to be remembered. It's going to be forgotten. So here's some thoughts that I want to share with you. First of all, one of the things that is extremely important is right here. Engagement matters. So if you think about this, there are a few aha moments that you might have in your demo. Think about this. If we do any post-regression win analysis and you talk to one of your customers and you said, why did you select us? I'm guessing none of them said something like, man, I just loved when I saw your login screen. And I just, when I saw Josh at a brand new user, I knew I had to have it. But isn't that the stuff that we always start with when memory and retention is the highest, as opposed to just jumping to the conclusion? Here's an interesting thought real quick, because there's some things obviously they're going to help. Let me cover that first. And then I want to tell you an interesting story. So first of all, engagement matters. We're going to talk about what engagement is and how to do it. Obviously, repetition, number two, is going to be really big when we go through. So we want to make sure that we repeat things like the value that we're going to provide and so forth. Obviously, follow-up is kind of like repetition. It allows us to reiterate the key points that we want folks to remember. And then, as we've already started to identify here, timing is very critical. So I want to take a few thoughts here for just a moment. But if timing is critical, let me ask you, when you do your software presentations and demonstrations, what's usually happens the first 5, 10, or 15 minutes of that meeting? Is your account exec involved, and what did they present? Type in your chat dialog box for me, if you will, what you typically see in the first 10 minutes of your software demonstration. Uh-oh, Michael, I see that. Michael said company overview to the hosts and panelists, introductions, whatever. Brian, I love that. Small talk intros, company overview. Yeah, these are great. I'm glad you're here. Here's Dave. The intelligent person's now going to speak. I love it. I love it. Hey, I'm going to tell you something. This may be quite alarming to you, but your customers don't care about your corporate overview. As a matter of fact, I had a friend named David that lost the love of his life, and that's how I know corporate overviews don't work. Now, that's kind of an odd thing to say. I'm curious. Anyone actually want to hear how I know that corporate overviews don't work because David lost the love of his life? There you go, Jared. I love that. Huh? Hey, let me tell you a quick story. This is actually a true story. I became a manager on the Western region of a company years ago. First time I was a manager in my career, and really loved my team. It was great. I always did a couple of things. I had 2 meetings a week with my team members, and I had a friend out in the West Coast. His name was David. In the beginning of the week, we had a meeting where we would just talk about the deals, the plans for the week. That was the deal review. The last day of the week, I met with everyone on my team, and it was more of a personal development. We do like a week in review a little bit, but we'd also talk about next steps. Well, I was talking with this gentleman, and he said, at the end of our call, basically, I said, "What are you doing this weekend?" And he said, "Man, I am thrilled." He said, I've been on eHarmony. Now we're going back about 20 years ago. But he said, I've been on eHarmony, Paul, and I've been talking to a gal for about 2 months. I've answered their millions of questions. And this weekend, we're going to meet. I get to meet her for the first time. I said, "Man, I'm thrilled for you. I'm so happy. Congratulations." And so the weekend passed. On Monday. It was deal planning day. I called this individual back, and we did our plans and our discussions and strategy. And I said, "Hey, I'm just curious, how do things go this weekend?" And he said, "Oh my goodness, it was fantastic." He said, "When I got to Starbucks earlier, and her name was Amber, but when Amber walked in, all I could think to myself was, don't mess this up." And he said, "I continued to repeat, don't mess this up, don't mess this up, don't mess this up." He said, "We bought coffee, we sat down, and he said, I had an amazing conversation with her." He said, "I felt so connected to this individual. It was amazing." He said, I told her all kinds of things. I told her about like where I grew up and where I went to college, and even some funny stories about, my dad's crazy toes and stuff like that. It was just so much fun." I said, "Man, I'm so happy for you. I'm thrilled." And so when Friday came the next week, I was so excited. I just had to know. I think I may even started the meeting instead of finished the meeting with, "Dude, are you going out with Amber again?" And that excitement that this individual had, it just shifted and it dropped. And I could hear the sadness and disappointment in his voice. And he said, "No." He said, she said she thought I was a nice guy, and she just didn't feel it. He said, she said she'd love to be friends, but she didn't want to go out with me again. I could hear like in his throat, in his voice, how painful this was for him. And I said, "What happened?" And he said, "Well," she said, "all I did was talk about myself. I never asked about her." And he said, "I guess if I would have disconnected with her a little bit and understood maybe more about her." And I thought that's kind of interesting. And I didn't tell this to David, but I thought about it after the fact. Isn't that what account execs do every time we kick off a demo? This is the obligatory logo slide. Everyone else loves this. You should too. We're going to tell you how great we are. We're highly funded, and we were founded in this year, and our founders are amazing. Here's the people that love us, and this is what the analysts say about us. So obviously, you should love us too. And so I think about that unique concept, and here's the suggestion I'm going to make. Maybe a little bit off script at the moment. Don't start with your corporate overview. Here's a quick thought. Had David connected with this gal, made her laugh a little bit, found something in common with her, like how his solution or how he could add value to her life, she would have asked those questions about his religion, about his education and his upbringing. And the customers will ask you the same questions if they like how you can help them solve their problems. All right. Well, maybe more of a story than you needed at the moment, but I always think about that because when it comes to engagement, those corporate overviews aren't the things that are going to help you win deals. But there are things that can help you win deals. And I did a little research. Here's actually the reasons when we do kind of regressive win analysis with clients, and all the clients that I've worked with, as well as the research I've done in the market. There's actually 7 things that I've got on my list here. There's more to it. Tell me what, in your chat dialog box, tell me one thing. What's the number one reason you think you win at your customers? I'm curious to see what it is. Before I give you the results of what I found, what do you think is actually there? Michael, I love that. Knowing the customer's pain. What else do you guys have? We understand their pains, laser focus on client success. Thank you, Art. This is good. What else? Trusted relationships. I'm seeing a pattern. Relationships, demonstrated value. Okay, I'm seeing a pattern here. I think you guys are right on track too. Oh, there you go, Jared. Because I've learned what's important to them and I showed just that. And I would say, and you showed it probably first. Mark Williams, there you go. How do you get upper management to shift that thought process? That's a good question. I'm going to hold that for a little bit. Should I just very selfishly say have them attend a great demo class? Have them listen to this webinar, if you will. There's an idea. There you go, Art. Thank you, man. You're getting some good ones in here. I love that. Here's some primary reasons that I found, and I think you guys nailed it in your chat. Strong value proposition. If you think about it, companies that effectively communicate their software's unique value proposition and how it addresses your customers' pain points, boom, you've got them on the hook, right? That's why they're there. Think about this. You've invested an hour, well, 30, 45, 60, 90 minutes of a person's time. They actually agreed to reach out to your organization and invest their time in a demo because they think you have something that can help them. So why don't you give it to them? So anyway, this involves demonstrating a clear ROI, benefits, and value. And when you can do that, that's the number one reason they select your solution. Solution fit, obviously, there, right? If you're tailoring your software solution to fit what customers need, you've got some innovative features. But then things like this, proven track record's important, trust and credibility. How many times have you heard people say, people buy from people, right? And wouldn't you agree that trust and credibility are dramatically enhanced when you've got a strong value proposition, when you've actually applied a solution to your customers and you listen to them? All the things that you just said were important in that chat dialog box. Absolutely. There's some other things here like competitive pricing and enhanced customer support. Those are things customers appreciate. The top of that list is giving your customer what they want. But here's the thing. We know they're going to forget, and they're going to forget very quickly. We know that when attention and retention of information is the highest, the beginning and the end, we're talking about ourselves. That's what account execs are classically trained to do. And if you're not giving a very specific solution fit, chances are this right here, what you're looking on this screen, interest is gone. So there's some things that we can do to enhance interest, because once you have interest in the topic and it's focused on the person that you're actually presenting to, you're going to start to see things like this: increased engagement, additional motivation, and higher prioritization of what they're doing. So think about engagement. Interest naturally captures and maintains someone's attention. It's interesting to you, you will not be multitasking at the moment, right? Which hopefully you're not doing right now, by the way. Motivation. Interest fuels motivation, which in turn enhances the attention span of your audience. If they're seeing how your solution can add value, they're going to be motivated to talk, to listen, have a conversation, to recommend you internally. And then, of course, when people are interested, they prioritize things a little bit differently as well. Individuals prioritize information processing, thinking, and retaining information, leading to a more in-depth engagement with the material. Here's an example. Have you ever watched a demo, been a part of a meeting, sat on a Zoom presentation, and multitasked the entire time? Brian, I just saw you smile, by the way. It happens all the time. Here is an example. Check this out, if you will. This might be the perfect analogy. I'm assuming everyone on this call, I would hope, or I would anticipate everybody has been on an airplane. I've flown millions of miles. And I can tell you there's one thing that I never pay attention to. Here's a fun example. Despite the crucial information that's actually presented at the beginning of a flight in your safety briefing, Passengers absolutely disengage. They prefer looking at their phones, the magazine articles in front of them. A lot of times they just simply close their eyes. And this phenomenon, it happens. It's very predictable. But here's why it happens. Perceived irrelevance. Some passengers may believe that the chances of an actual emergency are pretty slim. They are. And it's very low information that won't realistically be applicable to them, right? Jared, you are an outlier. I love that. Thank you. Number two, lack of personalization. The demonstration is the same for every flight. Everyone on every airline or major airline. So regardless of the individual's needs or the interests of the passenger, it's the exact same time, same every time. Hopefully not like your demos, but I've seen a few that look the same every time. And then thirdly, it's a passive presentation. The safety demonstration doesn't really include you. They don't pull someone from the audience to put the seatbelt on in front of everybody. They don't call you by name. There's little to no interaction, and no engagement is required for the passengers. Now, let me ask you a question. These three things of perceived irrelevance, lack of personalization, and a passive presentation, does it sound like any software demos you've ever seen? Starting with the corporate presentation that nobody cares about. The same diatribe demo where, by the way, when you ask if there's any questions and all you hear is crickets on the other end of the line, it's happened to me. It may have happened to you as well. Or it's just completely passive. What's this, Art? You said I flew Qantas one time and they started the safety briefing by asking, if there was an emergency, would you know how to exit the plane? Do you know where the life rafts are? You paid attention. Ah, it's interesting. So it sounds like they captured your interest. I love that, Art. Thank you. I feel like I need to just have you come and join me on my next webinar. All right, I appreciate this. So let's talk about this. How are we going to increase engagement and retention? I've got a couple ideas for you. I'm going to start with just kind of maybe a higher level list. Call these kind of master techniques sometimes when you're doing your demonstration. I'll demonstrate a few of them as we go through. And this is not inclusive. And then I want to share with you perhaps a methodology and how that methodology can help you dramatically increase engagement every time. All right, are you ready? Let's do it. Ways to increase engagement, if you will. Number one thing on my list, check this out. It's repetition and summarization of your material. Would everyone agree that people learn by repetition? Go to college, you repeat facts 100 times the night before the test, trying to get them. Hey, real quick, did anything just capture your attention about this particular slide? Throw that in your chat dialog box if you would. And I'll see if my attention technique worked or not. You got it, Catherine. Your numbers are off. Guess what? They're not. I did that because doing something out of the ordinary is a wonderful way to capture attention, right? When you do something like this, all of a sudden you guys come like, wait a second. You looked and you dug in. You may have leaned forward and scratched your head and you said, hey, that Pearce messed up. Number one, I would actually say is personalize your demonstration. So personalize it, make it very credible. Call people by name, use their solutions, use their data in your demonstration. But actually, more importantly, once you actually give them what they want, and when they told you what their major pain points were, just solve them. Give them a reason to look at it. So personalize your demo, summarize it. Here's something, memory representations and associations. Associate it with something that they already know. Maybe like going on a date on eHarmony with David and Amber. I don't know. An idea, perhaps. Stories of similar customers. Tell me this. Has anyone ever told you that stories are a great way to do a presentation? Is it a great way to get people to remember things? Absolutely. All right. Hey, this next one is going to be very important. If I can have everyone's attention for just a moment, I want you to focus right here on my screen, if you will. Number 5. If something's important, tell them. Pull them back in and just say, hey, this is very important. I want to make sure that I have your attention for just a moment because this is why it's important to you. So when you establish importance and credibility, dramatically increases retention and perhaps engagement. We're going to talk about maybe chunking up your demo, but do things in consumable bites. Make your talk track a little bit shorter. If you're going to have a beginning and an end, why don't you have multiple beginnings and multiple beginnings? Chunk up your demo. Talk about that a little bit later if we have time. And then, of course, check understanding. Okay, so there's some ideas. I think some of those probably are relevant to you. But I have a question for you, and actually perhaps maybe a Paul Pearce words of wisdom moment for you if you're interested. Have you ever given a presentation, a solution, a demo? You ask this question, which is, are there any questions? And you realize there are none. And you're thinking, wow, I must have done a really good job. They didn't ask me any questions. There's absolutely crickets on the other end. If you're interested, I'll give you Paul Pearce rules of engagement, something most people are completely uncomfortable with. Interested? All right, I saw Brian shake his head yes, and I only need one person to say it. I call it the 15-second rule. The 15-second rule gives your audience time to think about this. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to ask a question. As a matter of fact, I'm going to ask you to think about asking an open-ended question. Instead of saying, hey, any questions, say this instead. Hey, any thoughts, ideas, questions, anecdotes? What would you like to share? Whatever it is, give them a reason to talk. If you have questions, do you have questions as a close-ended question? They have to say yes or no. If you say, hey, what are your questions, thoughts, and observations? I'll turn it over to you for just a moment. Then I want you to count to 15 in your head. And I can guarantee you, because I've done this for years, by 10 seconds, you're going to feel very uncomfortable. And you're going to start to fidget. At 12 seconds, I usually cock my head and I think, oh my goodness, this is not going well. There's no questions. But here's what I found. It's usually 10 to 12 seconds before someone will give you a response. 15 is a validation point for me. And here's what happens. First of all, you're going to train your audience. This will be interactive, and I will wait for you. But more importantly, you have to think about this. First, they're going to process the question. He asked me a question, what's the thought? And they're going to take a second or two, they're going to think about it. They're also going to wait for just a moment. If your video cameras are on, they're going to look around and they're going to be kind, and they're going to say, is anyone else going to ask a question first? I don't want to be the first. And then they're going to take a moment or two to come off mute. Right now, we're about 9 or 10 seconds, and that's when the first question comes. If you don't give them time to engage and interact and ask you questions, you're going to reduce engagement and the interactivity of your demo. 15 seconds. Literally, I want you to count them off in your head after you ask that question, that open-ended question. Hey, thoughts, questions, observations, what's on your mind? I'm going to turn it over to you for just a moment. And then you smile at the camera and count to 15. All right. And then when you do, send me an email and let me know what you found. Because if you're like me, you're going to find, wow, that was amazing. It worked. I just learned so much from my customer. Okay. Let's keep moving here. Because actually, there's an entire methodology that works to dramatically increase your engagement and the retention of your presentation. Yeah, there you go, Michael. Thank you. If you're too quick, it can feel like you don't care if there are really any questions. Hey, here's a shameless self-promotion. I actually wrote an article just a couple of weeks ago. I called it The Power of the Pause. Check it out on Great Demo website and articles if you want. It gets into this concept a lot further. There you go. I didn't mean to do the shameless self-promotion, but it was an opportunity. I took it. All right. Hey, check this out, though. There's actually an entire methodology. What if I told you could take your demonstration, dramatically enhance the ability for folks to remember what you're demoing, and rocket engagement and interest in your presentation, and there's only 6 simple steps that it takes to do it? Would you be interested? Good. Here it is. Call it the Great Demo Methodology. Is designed by Peter Cohen. I don't know if I'll have to scroll here and see if Peter joined the session today. Peter is just one of my mentors and peers. Someone I've been a customer of Great Demos for 20 years, and I've been an affiliate and now part of the organization for several, and been a coach at Great Demo for 10. So Love this methodology, and I've seen it work firsthand because I've deployed it 3 times globally in my own pre-sales organizations. But here's the concept, if you will. Let me ask you just a quick question. In your chat dialog box, you can type yes or no. First of all, do you think you can start your meeting with just giving a customer a couple topics that you might want to talk about for the day? I call it the menu, right? How about this? Would you be interested or able, or me, I'm trying to get to my pointer here, in just 1 or 2 minutes to tell the customer what you know? Perhaps maybe it's a story about someone similar if you don't know much about them, but if you do, simply tell them what you know about them. Number 3, could you do this? Instead of just jumping into the demo, how about if you pick a picture, a crisp, concise overview of the coolest part of your feature or your solution? And I say cool, not meaning like what you think is cool, but actually represents the capabilities that your customer needs. Perhaps an end result. It's a report that they need, a dashboard, whatever it is. And then if the customer says, I think that would help, and I can see how I could get value from that, what you're going to find, if you've done that, of course, is that engagement goes up. That's when they start to lean in towards the camera a little bit and they look at you and you say, well, if you think that would be helpful, why don't I show it to you? And that's where we're going to jump in what we call the do it pathway. It's actually a really short part of your demo. Peter Cohan likes to say it's the fewest number of clicks. I like to say, if you've been classically trained to do demos, you're going to feel very uncomfortable right now. Because this is literally 1 or 2 mouse clicks, and then you stop and you just ask a really intelligent question. I just showed you how quick and easy that was. It's going through your mind. Based upon that question and that dialogue, if you will, we're going to enter what we call the delightful world. And you could probably do this as well. We're just going to reveal some of the additional capabilities around what you just shared. It's very focused. It's very conversational. As a matter of fact, I would say at this point in your demo, if you're willing to try it, is you're going to start to see a little bit of a loop right here. And that's where you do a real quick overview, part of the solution. Then you have a conversation. And after that conversation, you come right back up to the next feature or function. You do it as quickly as possible. You don't give any extra information. And you enter this kind of this feedback loop, giving more details based upon your customer's interest. And then when you're done, you just see if there's any open-ended questions or additional questions that you might have, and summarize with what you showed them and the value, of course. 5 or 6 easy steps here. And essentially, that is the great demo methodology. Hey, let me see, Brian, I'm looking at you for a moment. Would you like to see an example of this? Maybe I could give you a quick demo.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Yeah, it just dawned on me. Instead of using a generic example, I should have given a really cool demo of your solution, but we'll talk. Maybe I could ask you a few questions about that at the end. All right, I'm just going to do a real generic example, if you will. Let's pretend for just a moment. Everyone watching the seminar, if you will, we're going to pretend for just a moment you are a vice president of sales, and you're working for a mid-sized software company. You've had some challenges though, having a hard time forecasting revenue. You're not exceeding, you're not even meeting your quota. You're doing your forecasting manually. It's painful. And you said what you wanted to have is an actual review, an aggregate of the forecast that's delivered in real time. That you want you're be able to look at statuses, maybe do some analysis of that. And that you felt if you had those capabilities, you could dramatically increase your revenue. So with that, if you think about that, your VP of sales or CRO, kind of fitting at the moment, isn't it, Brian? And let's say for just a moment, I had a chance to do discovery. In the perfect world, right? Of course, if you're going to do a demo, you've had discovery, you know what the customer needs. Might start with something like this. Here's actually, I'll skip the menu. We're going to jump right into a situation. Here it is. So we're going to fast forward. Brian, if you'd be my customer for just a moment, let's say you and I spoke last week. And today I'm coming in to give you a presentation, a demo of our CRM. Cool?
Sounds
I
good.
might just doing something like this. I'm going to say, hey, Brian, it was great chatting with you last week. Thank you. Hey, real quick before I jump in, I want to make sure I captured things correctly. And when we spoke last week, you said you were really struggling with achieving your quarterly and annual quota, and that you had suggested it was because of some problems you're having. And that was you're distributing your forecasts manually. You said there was a lot of errors. You mentioned things like it took your team a tremendous amount of time. In fact, I think you told me that a lot of times that forecast that you receive manually is outdated when you get it. and that other executives have actually heard about your deals being, won or lost sometimes before you get that information. You had mentioned that there were some things that you needed, and that was a rapid review and view of your forecast. You wanted interactive graphing capabilities, essentially, so that you could interact with it, but more importantly, got it in real time. You said you wanted a status of accounts and some opportunities, or you wanted to look at the status of all your accounts, and that you actually wanted to be notified anytime there was a major change so that you knew about it before other executives in your company. But here's the interesting, Brian. If I did capture this correctly, you had suggested that you thought that you could increment or increase your revenue by over $2 million if you had this type of analysis, proactive analysis, and access to your information. More importantly, you said you got a new field office starting in May 1. And you wanted to have things organized and ready to go quickly. Hey, let me stop real quick. I'm going to ask you a question or two, Brian. First, did I capture this right and correctly?
Yeah, looks like you got it all.
Well, I appreciate that. And real quick, anything changed since we spoke last week that I should know about?
Well, I've heard about this team that's very important, the pre-sales team, and apparently they've got some warning signs and sentiment and technical risks and blocker information that I would love to incorporate into my forecast as well. So that's something new I just learned about that I'd love to incorporate here.
I love that. That is fantastic. Thank you. Hey, I've got a vision for how we can help you. Are you interested? Want to see it?
Yes, please.
Okay, here we go. Check it out. Dude, this is it. This is the Pearce software platform where you can have all the information you need right at your fingertips. An ability to look at the account status information, your complete overview. Here, Brian, you'll be able to see all your top opportunities and the probability of close. Of course, completely interactive, so you can drill in and do your sensitivity analysis on those. Look at your pipeline, your commitment and your goal towards your quota, both, of course, on a corporate and a regional level. Look at your leads, top performing reps, and conversional revenue as well, based upon territory. Things that you mentioned that you said would be very important to you in that. And with this type of information at your fingertips, an ability to drill in and look at things in detail that's updated in real time. Hey, Brian, let me ask, do you feel this would help you achieve that $2 million in incremental revenue that you'd hoped for?
Yeah, this looks great. Everything that I'm missing right here.
Fantastic. Hey, what questions does it generate? And do you want to jump in and see it live?
I would love to.
All right, sounds good.
I'm an
Hey, so
easy
the floor,
customer.
what's that?
I'm an easy customer.
You are the perfect customer. I appreciate it. It's like, yeah, I don't know. But essentially, folks, what I just shared with you is the beginning components of a great demo. It highlights exactly what we know about the customer. It focuses on the value that the solution, which is tailored dynamically and very specifically to your customer, lets them know that we heard them and that we've got a very sincere plan. As a matter of fact, by going to the illustration, I actually brought up that cool picture of the end result. Brian said this is exactly what he wanted. Matter of fact, he said it would generate the value that he thought. And here's where I found a traditional demonstration gets flipped upside down. And instead of it being a regular demo, what I usually find is that your customers immediately start peppering you with questions, which we should celebrate because now we know what's important to them. And instead of a diatribe demo that goes 8, 9, 10, 12 minutes before we ask the regretted question, any questions, to hear nothing, what we find is all of a sudden the customer's very engaged. I'm like, oh, wait a second. That is exactly how I want it. But how did you get that information in there? How do you integrate to other systems? What type of active notifications might I receive? And then you can start to reveal the rest of your demo based upon those questions. Hey, let me tell you a quick story. Actually, I won't. I'm looking at the time. We're going to keep moving. I'm going to pick up the pace. Check this out. So here's one concept that I want to share with you. This. Give your customers what they want. So I want to start real quick here with the great demo methodology. And if you really want to increase engagement, there's a couple of suggestions that we have when it comes to that great demo methodology. Peter Cohen says, if there's one thing that you need to do to dramatically increase the engagement of your demos, it's this right here. Type it in your chat dialog box for me, if you will. That is, do the last thing first. do the last thing first. There you go. That doesn't mean give them the work order or the subscription agreement. It means think about your traditional demo. It starts at the beginning and it goes through the login and the setup screens and adding users and whatever it is. Instead, it's looking at that most important feature and capability, the end result, that beautiful chart, the graph, the interactive AI, the analytics page, whatever it is, bring it up to the front, show them the end result right up front. It's kind of like the picture on the box in a grocery store. You got to know what's in the box. And so you actually bring that up, and what you'll find is engagement increases tremendously. So let me walk you through the steps here real quick. First of all, I'm going to suggest we do this. Present a menu. And here's an interesting thought. Let me ask you this question. How many times have you had discovery with a customer? You scheduled the demonstration, whether it's on site or Zoom. And when you went into that meeting, you found out there was 2 to 3 or 5 or 10 people in that room that you've never met. Give me a yes or no in your chat dialog box. Has that ever happened to you? Yeah. Thank you, D. Yeah, absolutely. So guess what? We've got to do some immediate forms of discovery. Think about this. You and your friends, your family, coworkers go into a restaurant. You've got 45 minutes for lunch. How does the waiter identify what you want to eat very, very quickly? What do they do? Brian, any ideas? Or you can type it in your chat dialog box as well. What do they give you, Brian, when you sit down at that table?
They give you a menu.
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, the menu is a pretty important concept because they don't have to give you an entire demo of everything in the kitchen. Simply give you some options. The menu may have something like, here's the dish and here's the ingredients. In a demo, you could just say, here's the critical business issue we're solving for, and here's the value. But let me ask you a quick question, Brian. We're going to present the menu. Let's see. Brian, if you go to a restaurant Sunday morning, 10:30, with a family, what kind of menu would they give you?
Definitely brunch.
Okay, a brunch menu. You're going at 12 o'clock on Monday.
Probably lunch.
Okay. Let's say it's 4:30, 4 o'clock, Thursday afternoon. You're in Central Florida.
First of all, I'm enjoying life if that's true. But now we're talking happy hour.
Yeah, happy hour. After dinner, might have a menu, a wine list. So if you really think about it, almost every restaurant you go to has multiple menus, 8, 9, 10 of them. Dessert menu, wine menu, you name them. They're all there. So the first concept is create a menu of different topics based upon the personas that you're talking to. If you've done discovery and you've got 3 or 4 topics to address, put them in a menu and simply do this. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm prepared to talk about 4 different things with you today. Here's the menu, right? Here's the topic, the demo topic, and here's the value. Where do you want to start? Immediately prioritize the most important thing to your audience. Solve it first. Bring it to the beginning of your demo when retention is the highest. Next, once you've selected that item, introduce your situation slide, much like we talked about. Make sure they understand. Here's the other thing. If you've got 4 people in your room that have never heard of you, haven't met you, weren't part of your discovery, there's something else in the real world we get to do to dramatically increase engagement. If you're watching a Netflix show and it's a series, let's say you're binge watching a Netflix series, at the beginning of every episode, usually in about 30 seconds, what do they do? What do they give you? Anyone? The recap. You nailed it. Yeah, Brian Lewis, thank you. They give you the recap. And essentially your situation slide tells the customer you heard them and you understand them. You're verifying it. It's also the Netflix episode recap that brings everyone else up to speed. We would jump in and we would then present the illustration, the end result. We're just going to verify that what we think would work for the customer, they can also see the value and captures their attention. I can guarantee you this is when engagement soars right here. I kind of call it like you're fishing and you just got them hooked. I love the illustration. It's a crisp, concise overview where we literally just walk through what the capabilities are and we ask an engaging question, which is this what you had in mind? And do you think this would add value? If they say yes, we just jump into the do it pathway and we summarize. What's the shortest distance between 2 points? Check it out. Straight line. The do it pathway is the anti-complexity part of your demo. Think about this. Has anyone ever told you that your software demonstration or your software looks complex? It's hard to use. You ever heard that? Give me a thumbs up or a heck yeah in your chat dialog box if that's the case, because I know I hear it all the time. The do it pathway is the anti-complexity part of your demo. It's literally the fewest number of clicks. And instead of the login screen, all the options, the drop-down list boxes, this is where you simply, with the fewest number of clicks, navigate to the screen, show it, and stop. And your customer is going to say, okay, that looked easy. That's cool. It's almost thinking about it like, hey, you've implemented it. Now you're in the day in the life. You need to set anything up. You just need your forecast report, Brian. And boom, here it is. Did you see how easy it was? I clicked one button. I got your forecast report. Everything's at your fingertips. It's a one-click demo. And I would say, Brian, now that you've seen this, what questions does this generate for you? That's the do it pathway. And then, of course, we'll peel back the layers. Brian might ask me questions and say, well, Paul, I want to drill into account, actually look at the specifics of my top highest, probability account for the quarter, make sure we're on track. And I might say, cool. I would just simply click here. Do you want to see it? You'd say, yeah. And so we would go there. That's peeling back the layers and answering questions and turning essentially at this point your demo. Wait a second. You just realize a demo is a 4-letter word. Huh. And instead of doing a demo, why don't you turn it into a conversation? And that's what happens right here. We simply then go in, summarize. But here's the deal. When we summarize, we can actually go right back to our situation slide. Say, here's what you said you needed. This is what we shared with you. So hopefully you can see the value that you need to solve some of those challenges that we talked about. Here's the concept that I want to share with you before I conclude. If you want to dramatically increase engagement, besides doing a lot of those things, just do this. Do the last thing first in your demo. Maximize engagement, maximize retention, focus on the customer, give them exactly what they want. And when you personalize your demo, you've got more interest, more motivation. Hey, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to turn it over really and kind of move into this next part. Sometimes this is the happiest part of one of my webinars, the summary, which I just did. But I also want to make sure that we've got time for Q&A and questions. And so let me just turn it over to you, the audience. The most important person in this webinar is you. What questions does this generate for you? What thoughts, observations, and stories would you like to share? I'll give you a moment, maybe give you more than 15 seconds. Type in your chat dialog box, maybe perhaps what's going through your mind right now. Thoughts, questions, observations, and comments. Be happy to take any questions that you may have. Like some of the comments and things that are coming in. Mark said, getting AEs to change how they would like to demos delivered. Yeah. I always like to tell them that story about the corporate overview slide. And I always remind them that if your customer has interests, move your corporate overview slide to the end of your presentation. I mean, if your demo is going to get short, you're not making it through your entire agenda. Why don't you make sure you first solve the customer's problems before you try to talk about yourself, and if there's interest, they'll go there. Hey, Jared also said, I'm wondering if I'm a product specialist and was thrown into a meeting that had no discovery, how can I fix the situation? Thanks for asking that question. Hey, here's a couple of suggestions that I would do. I would go right back to your menu approach, much like that restaurant. If you know who you're meeting with and you know their job title, using ChatGPT, you can figure out what their general KPIs are. You even may know. Because Jared, you're the world's leading expert, literally one of the world's leading experts on the solutions that you create. So if you're talking to whatever the job role is, figure out what their number 1, 2, 3, and top priorities are. Map your solution to it. And you can open up and say, hey, I'm prepared to talk about 3 or 4 things with you today that I think would be relevant. is there one that jumps off of the page? We're going to immediately prioritize what's on that. If there's nothing there that they want to see, jump into discovery and ask them, what would you like to see today? And then start with a story. That situation slide I shared with you about the customer, use one about a different customer. Just say, I was meeting with someone similar to you. And let me tell you their story and let me ask, how does that compare to your situation? Dramatic engagement, because you're telling a story, you're establishing value. And you can just simply ask a question. Then I'm curious. I gave you just a real quick story, but how does that compare with what's happening? Once again, you're going to turn it into a conversation. So there's just a couple tips that I would suggest, Jared. All right, we got a couple more questions coming in. I'm going to scroll here. Yeah, Art said do the last thing first, not the corporate overview. I appreciate that. And the recording will be shared. Art, you got some great summaries there. Summarize strong with a confirmation of their understanding and a clear call to action. Absolutely. I love that, Jared. Picking up what we're putting down. Hey, I want to thank everyone so much for attending. Brian, let me turn it back over to you. If you don't mind, real quick, I'm going to put my digits on the screen. Look over here on the left-hand side, if you would. I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Put your email address in the chat dialog box if you'd like us to send you a copy of this presentation. The recording will also be made available, I believe. Capture that if you want to reach out and talk to myself or anyone else from the Great Demo team. And with that, Brian, can I turn things back to you and just thank everyone so much for allowing me to share some ideas with you today?
Yeah, perfect. If you just go to the final slide then. Yep, so as promised, my contact information's here as well. So certainly, if you want to get in touch to learn more about Great Demo, Homerun, how they can work together, get in touch with Paul or myself, or of course, submit a demo request on the Homerun website, www.homerunpresales.com. Paul, great presentation today. Really appreciate this. A couple of my takeaways that I kind of jotted down as you were going through. I loved the do something unexpected, the two coming in before number one, sort of as an intentional attention getter. We all noticed that and was like, all right, nailed it. Also, on that same slide, a little bit later, when you said, focus their attention. I want you to focus right here. This is really important. We all immediately went and focused on where you were. It was a good attention grabber, so I love that as well. 15-second rule. I agree. It's the hardest 15 seconds in all of pre-sales. I've posted about this a few times. I mean, my little trick for that is ask the open-ended questions. I count to 3. I always have water or coffee. I intentionally slowly, I drink, I pause, I put it back down. That kills another 5 or 6 seconds, and then I wait. That's always been really helpful, but you're right. It takes a while before the questions start to come in. So I appreciate the pause part. And also the recap of the situation slide. As you said, sometimes you're getting people coming in that have not been part of the conversation. They're coming in cold. That's a great recap to get them up to speed, which is really helpful. And of course, do the last thing first. So amazing content. Thank you for presenting today.
I've got a quick question for you, Brian, if you don't mind. I've got, I see a ton of my friends here. I want to just call everyone out by name that will recognize these names. So thank you for joining. But not everyone's of my friends are familiar with pre-sales. Or pre-sale, Homerun pre-sales. Give us your elevator pitch real quick.
So we
about the solution real quick.
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, we talk about ourselves as the pre-sales workspace that gets high-performing pre-sales teams through their day. So every team is juggling multiple deals. They're using multiple tools. They're wondering what's most important. We don't have the visibility we need. We're distracting the team asking for updates. We're manually updating information or manually tracking activities. It's just a mess to get through our days as individual contributors and managers. Homerun is a pre-sales solution that becomes that day-to-day solution for SEs all the way up through the pre-sales leadership to just get through their day, run a modern pre-sales team, report up to leadership, close more deals, close them faster.
Pretty good. Yeah. Hey, as a matter of fact, I think in May, we've got another webinar and I'm interviewing you, but we've actually got a joint customer that uses Homerun pre-sales and dramatically increase the success of their POCs and POVs, proof of concepts.
That's right.
Using the Homerun and Great Demo essentially together. The results have been phenomenal. So stay tuned. We'll get some information out to folks in our newsletters and other things. I don't remember the date or I'd call it, but I think the second half of May, we'll have a wonderful webinar. Right. I'm really excited about it. Yeah, so join us for that as well.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
All right. See you. Thanks, folks. Appreciate you.